Welcome, ShopTalkers. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn, CEO and founder of Dr. Dawn ShopTalk. And as we like to say around here, let's talk shop. Today, that means we're putting it all together. In episode 78, you got the voice. In episode 79, you got the words. Now it's time to own your own executive presence. So if you want to know how to show up with poise, power, and presence, today's episode is perfect for you. So come back and join us, where you know we love to talk about it all, right here on the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast.
Are you a strong, independent woman who's passionate about her career? Then this podcast is perfect for you. Based on her book, The Career Woman's Secret Playbook, career coach Dr. Dawn Hamby shares the kind of insider secrets you can only know if you've hired, fired, and promoted employees over the past 30 years.
Ladies, I'm on a mission to help busy women just like you create a career and life you love without sacrificing your work-life balance to get it. Come join me as we inspire and motivate each other only as women can and have lots of fun along the way.
With Dr. Dawn's tools, strategies, and action steps, you can unleash your personal and professional power in a whole new way. Here's today's episode.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to episode 80 of the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast. And per usual, I am so glad you're here. I cannot believe we are already up to 80 episodes. And in fact, thinking about that, I'm going to go ahead and include the podcast playlist. So you've got most of the videos. Actually, there are YouTube versions of that. So if you're visual and you do want to watch the other episodes rather than listen to them, I'll go ahead and include that playlist. Now, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, then you're good to go. As soon as you listen to the latest episode, it can take you back to previous episodes. I've noticed that with Apple Podcasts, if I'm listening to one of my favorite podcasters, and let's say they have 3 other episodes I haven't listened to, then as soon as I'm done with that episode, it will go ahead and load the more recent ones. So that's really a fun way to binge listen to your favorite episodes or to hear more from that particular podcaster. So again, be sure to check that out. If you are new here, you'll hear me mention other episodes I think could help and are relevant to what we're talking about. And I always put those links in the show notes on the podcast platform and also in the description box on YouTube. YouTube also gives us the ability to pop up the episode in the iCard. And, when you're watching it, I think it's actually on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can click on that and it immediately takes you to that episode. If there's something that just intrigues you about that topic and you're like, oh, I'll come back to that in a minute. Let me watch this one instead. So that's really amazing about the YouTube platform. And the fact that the podcast also has the ability to allow us as podcasters to include other links for you. So you just check those out on the show notes, click on anything that interests you, and you are good to go, people. So again, since we've got 80 episodes, there's so much that you guys, I think, will enjoy listening to. Now, speaking of that, remember, I love to hear from our community. We're building an amazing community of professionals that, just like you, are interested in up-leveling their game. In other words, bringing their A game to the office. So be sure to comment below on YouTube or even on the podcast. Let us know about questions you might have or even ideas for other episodes. I always love hearing from our audience, and you guys are so awesome. You give us the best reviews and comments, so I really appreciate you. Okay, you guys, so let's start with this. What is executive presence actually, and why does it matter in the world of work? Well, if you've been listening for a while, you know I love the research. I'm always fascinated about what the research says because the topics I'm bringing to you are topics that I know are important to my clients. These are also topics I've done workshops and seminars about, and it's just things that I find really interesting that I know can help you. Now, don't forget, we also have a monthly motivational series. We've taken a little break from that because we took a break from the podcast as our company kind of exploded and we had too many workshops to handle. Well, that's a great problem to have. We've got all that figured out now, you guys. But we were super busy. We continue to be busy, but we've now created a schedule that's going to help us continue to bring you podcasts and YouTube videos and things like that. My goal is always once a week, if I can. We try to release new episodes on Monday, so you've got some new content to listen to as you face the week ahead. And then on YouTube, I usually will upload videos on Thursdays. Not always, but be on the lookout for that. We are trying to be as consistent as possible so that you know when to expect new episodes. I know I appreciate that. If I'm used to getting episodes once a week from my favorite YouTubers and content creators, then I get a little peeved and a little disappointed that there's nothing new. So thanks to you guys. You guys were missing us, and we were like, you know what? We got to figure out a way to get back to the podcast. But I'm so happy that I've got a list of amazing women I'm going to be inviting to share their thoughts about topics that we've covered and also share their stories of how they came to be business owners. And in many cases, they may not actually own the business. They just might work for amazing organizations. And I would love for them to share their story about what they do and how they're helping other women and how they're helping their community. Now, of course, I talk about women helping women all the time on this podcast because that's why I felt like it was so important for my podcast to really help women in particular. And that's the reason that my book is all about women, right? The podcast is based on my book initially. And the reason I did that is even though my company does work with men and women both, I just saw that women needed some additional help and support. And then I loved the idea of talking to you like I would one of my girlfriends. That's one of the reasons I call my company Dr. Dawn's ShopTalk, because it's all about talking shop. It's about discussing the issues we know can hold us back and affect our success. So that's why I thought executive presence would be the next natural topic to discuss when in those previous episodes we talked about the sound of your voice and how that could be helping you or hurting you. And then in the next episode following that, that was last week's episode, we talked about the importance of the words that you're choosing, right? How to make sure you're speaking more eloquently, because that can definitely make a difference. So when we talk about executive presence in today's episode, we're really talking about how do we put all of that together along with some other things I want you to consider. So here's the first thing I want to mention to you. You know, I love doing the research for you and also making sure that I'm talking about some time-tested techniques that have worked for both me and my staff along with my clients. So again, the first issue we're going to talk about is why executive presence matters and kind of define that along the way. So let's start with this, right? This first issue number one. Executive presence is really made up of three pillars, three foundations, in other words, that sort of create what someone's presence is all about. And those three pillars, according to the research, include gravitas, communication, and appearance. Those three key traits remain powerful indicators even today of the kind of presence you're projecting. Do you walk into the room and people just can tell that you're in some sort of leadership role? And when I say leadership, I do not mean, by the way, that you have to be supervising folks. I work with a lot of what I would consider to be leaders, and oftentimes their companies identify them as leaders, even if they don't have any direct reports. Now, does everyone need to serve in a leadership position? Absolutely not. Quite a few people don't want that extra responsibility. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. However, whether or not you're in charge of a person or a project, I find it so important when I work with companies and even in working with my own staff. I want to make sure that every single person feels important because every role really is. We all come together to be able to make things better for our organizations and the people we have the privilege of serving. So I want you to feel that you are leading from every seat, as they say, that you are leading from every position. Because remember, leadership really is not a job title. It's not what's labeled on your business card. It really is an action, not a position. Now, if you need a little extra support in trying to up-level your game, in other words, like I said before, bringing your A game to the office, then I'll include my upskilling playlist for you. I've got a ton of videos that can help you with all of that. Okay, you guys, let's move on to the second issue. I mentioned leadership, but I'm now going to pair that with trust. In other words, studies also show us that today it's not all about the polish. Is polish and poise important in projecting an executive presence? Absolutely, but it's not all about that. It's about feeling trustworthy. Your authenticity, in other words, really matters. If people feel that they cannot trust you, or if for some reason trust has been broken between you and your employee or between you and a coworker, is it hard to get that back? Yes, it does have its challenges, but it's not impossible. I have seen within my own department when I have worked with my employees and trust has been broken, it may take us a minute to bridge that gap, but I promise you, it is possible. Techniques like what we're talking about today can make all the difference. So you do have to earn that trust back if it's broken. But again, it's possible. Don't give up on that. It's just too important. Now, in terms of trust and leadership, something else that's important is to make sure that you're really building those relationships, that you're resonating with others and building that real human connection. Remember, that's a cornerstone to networking. You need to lead by asking more about how things are going for that other person. Let them know when you think something is amazing or you're so impressed with what they're doing. Let them know that you would like to help in any way that you could. Let them know that if they've taken big risks and things have worked out, or even if they haven't worked out, that you're proud of the effort that they're making and the difference they're probably making for their community. That really matters to people. Remember, when it comes right down to it, as they say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. There's a reason that's a popular phrase in the professional and personal development space. You guys, it really is true. I've got lots of other videos to help you on that with our mindset and confidence series. So again, guys, I'll be sure to include that playlist in the show notes and in the description box. Okay, let's move on to a third issue. It has to do with gender gaps. Now, you know, one of the reasons I love putting together this podcast is in my experience, the women that worked for me and the women that I would interview, the women sometimes, unfortunately, that I had to let go of, or in happier news, the women I got to offer promotions to. There was a common thread where I saw the ladies working harder, kind of beating their head against the wall, lots of different areas of frustration. Everything from imposter syndrome to issues with branding and their executive presence, which is another reason that I love the podcast being a safe place for us ladies, you know, a place where I feel like I can share with you what I've observed and where I feel like you and I are just having a cup of coffee and talking about issues that I know can be important to us. Or in some cases, having a glass of wine together, depending on when you're listening to me. uh, as much as I love coffee, I think that's even a little bit more fun. Okay. So let's just connect over that glass of wine or that craft cocktail if that's more your speed. I know I certainly love that. So again, these would be the kind of issues I might discuss, you know, with my friends and with my colleagues, especially if we were at a networking event, enjoying either that glass of wine or that cup of coffee. So I want to bring that to you. And when it comes to any gender gaps or biases, I'm going to discuss that as well. And unfortunately, I am seeing some of this still in the workplace, not just with the clients I work with, but also definitely when I do additional research and look at what the statistics are showing us. So, right now, even in 2025, there are some gender gaps that remain. For example, did you know that despite major progress that women have made over the years, when it comes to senior leadership positions and those C suite positions, right, like CEO and CFO and the like, women only hold approximately 30% of those positions. The range is anywhere from 29% to 33%. Considering that worldwide women are in the majority when you look at birth and death rates, it's so disappointing to still see that. I'm the mother of two amazing daughters, one by birth and one that I had the fortune, since my husband and I are a blended family, of having as my beautiful bonus daughter. And they both do such important work for their community. And it just breaks my heart that today we still are seeing not just these gender gaps, but also some real concerns in terms of women, their rights, equity, their sense of power and powerlessness. So I feel fortunate to be able to discuss some of these issues and get your feedback as well. I'm not always going to focus on the gender gaps because, again, I have seen real progress. Some of my mentors, of course, have been men. And I have a special place in my heart for men who support amazing, independent, and strong women. I think that in a world where sometimes women's power can still be a little threatening to some people, I think it does require that a man is just very confident in himself, to appreciate that in other women and to want better for their daughters. So I just love that because I was raised by a very strong, independent mother, and my dad always appreciated that so much in her. Now, many of you know she passed away almost 2 years ago now, and my father is still with us and he is in his 80s. So he definitely comes from a generation where that was not always appreciated or expected by women. So when you look at history, yes, we've made big strides in a relatively short period of time. As a former history teacher, I can tell you that history is not measured, in short time periods. And even if you look at 100 or 200 years, in the scheme of things, that's not a lot of time. So I have a lot of hope that our daughters and granddaughters and our sons and grandsons are continuing to create a better world for us all, where we can be more patient, more accepting, more loving. And if we have different points of view, that we respect those and try to understand where the other person is coming from. So, although you'll hear me talk about gender differences, I do that to share that with you so that you can be more aware. We do have more and more men listening to the podcast. And I always appreciate that so much. But I do want our women, who many times are wearing multiple hats. They're exhausting themselves. They don't always have the support they need. More and more women are the heads of households and are having to raise their families on their own. I was a single mom myself for 14 years after being married for over a decade and having a wonderful relationship with my husband, who is my daughter's father. And although we're not together now, we are still dear friends today. But I consider myself to be very fortunate. Now, that did not come easy. We had to work hard to make that happen, and for both of us to pull our weight in making that happen. And not everybody has that. So I understand that and I appreciate that. If you don't have that, again, I want you to go to these playlists because I help you focus on what you can and cannot control. Focus on your effort. And I promise you, even if the outcome is not exactly what you expected, sometimes it's even better than before. If you need additional help, of course, we're here. We can do workshops and seminars. I love my private coaching clients. You could always check out our options on our website. But I like to always lead with the videos and other podcast episodes we have for you so that you can get personalized and quick help and support right away without having to book a consultation call or visit with us. Now, of course, we do free consultation calls. We'd love to visit with you anytime. So, yes, we're here for you. But no matter what you choose to do, just think about these issues. And as we talk about them, no, I'm not going to leave you high and dry. We'll talk about the issues. And then we're also going to get to, of course, some solutions, some action steps you can put in place right away. Now, before we leave the issues section of today's podcast, I want to bring up a fourth issue. I talked about gender gaps. I now want to just address bias itself. What's interesting about the research when it comes to bias in leadership in particular is that women still today in 2025 are judged more harshly when they exhibit traditional feminine or even masculine traits. So again, if they're dressing in what might be considered a traditionally feminine way, they could be judged more harshly, not just by the men, but by the women as well. Sometimes as women, we are our own worst critics and hold ourselves back in even worse ways than the men. Again, because to me, it's even more hurtful when that criticism comes from other women, when we truly should be lifting each other up. And if we think there are things that are holding each other back, let's have that dialogue. Let's have that conversation. Let's be less quick to be judgmental about it. When it comes to leadership, women are also facing higher thresholds for leadership. For example, I remember being on a meeting in the height of COVID, and we had a senior leader who was Zooming in. And yes, it was great that although, like many of us, he was having to take care of children who were home from school at the same time as trying to participate in an important meeting. I did notice that when his daughter appeared on the screen and was throwing things, there were Barbies flying all about, many of us were just laughing and joking about it, okay? And understandably so. It was pretty funny to see a Barbie come flying out, during the meeting. But what I found disappointing is I have been in other meetings around that same time where when the woman was frazzled because her children were not listening, not paying attention, you could see and sense the judgment a little more. The guy was seen as this amazing father. Oh, look at all the amazing things he's doing. He's trying to be this great dad to these cute girls. And as someone who had been a single mom for a long time before deciding to give love another chance and get married again, and now my husband and I have been married now for 10 years, so we met much later in life. But I remember those single mom years, and we didn't have the virtual platforms like we do today, but there definitely was a lot more judgment then and even now if, I don't bring my A game, if I'm being distracted because there are little kids on the call. So, ladies, I caution you, please do not be judgmental of each other when that happens. Point out the discrepancies and not to make the men feel bad when they're not given the same criticism, but instead to use that example of that bias as a way to bridge that gap. So I'd love to see that be the result of some of these podcast episodes where we're having these kinds of conversations, right? The more often we can be patient with each other in the workplace, oh my goodness, does that not just help everybody, right? Okay, ladies, as I mentioned earlier, your girl loves talking about the issues, but as usual, I'm not going to leave you high and dry. We're going to talk about some action steps, some tips, some strategies you can put in place right now. So the first thing I want to mention is that we have a Building Your Brand playlist. I'll again insert that right here on the show notes and in the description box. But I also wanted to personally invite you to our next workshop because it's going to be all about rebooting your brand. You can join us through our live stream if you're not in the Little Rock, Arkansas area. But if you are, come find us, go to our website website at drdawnshoptalk.com. Just click on that workshop tab to find out more about the workshop. But I usually host these events on your lunch hour. That way, it's an amazing networking opportunity. And again, if you can't join us in person, on your lunch hour, that's fine. You can go ahead and get a ticket. There's a difference in the price since you're not able to join us for lunch, but you can again join us through our live stream and be part of that group. We not only put together this special workshop for you, but all of my workshops come with 21 days of additional daily tips and support. You get invited to a private Facebook group where I post daily tips and videos to help you take everything you've learned in the workshop and really apply it. So be sure to check that out, you guys. Let me know if you have any questions about it. We would love to see you at the workshop. Okay, you guys, so let's get into 3 strategies that can really help you elevate your executive presence. Let's get back to gravitas. And this is strategy number 1. I want you to anchor your gravitas. So let's start with a definition of gravitas, okay? I'm literally going to read this to you. In the context of executive presence, gravitas refers to the weight or seriousness and authority that a leader projects. Okay, so it's kind of referring to that presence that you have when you walk into that room. That's really what we're talking about here. And interestingly enough, the title has nothing to do with it. It's that je ne sais quoi that makes people instinctively follow you and trust your leadership. So when we're talking about anchoring your gravitas, I want you to think about creating a foundation as your springboard to this executive presence. And you can do that by practicing your composure, not just through your voice and the powerful words that I hope you're now choosing to use based on last week's episode, but also through eye contact, the way that you carry yourself, even the way that you sit. If you just come across as if you're very comfortable in your own skin and you take up a little bit more space in that chair, right? If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm going to kind of demonstrate that. If you're sitting straight up and you have great posture, that's awesome. But if you're sitting straight up and you just look a little nervous and you just look smaller, then kind of shrinking down into yourself, so to speak, that's not going to come across as gravitas or confidence in any way. If you sit back, and hopefully I'm not making too much noise on the podcast when I do this, but if you sit back a little bit in that chair and you have your kind of hands in sort of a casual, comfortable position, you don't have your arms crossed across your chest. You have them sitting comfortably like this, and maybe even if you're crossing your legs as a woman here, oftentimes we might cross our legs in a certain way, kind of leaning to the side. This is part of that body language that gravitas does include, right? It's how you're projecting yourself. And if you lean back a little bit, and again, you're taking up a little bit more space in your chair versus sitting like this, then, and again, I apologize if you can't see what I'm demonstrating. I'm so sorry, but I'm really just demonstrating sitting back in the chair and taking up more room rather than, having bad posture and kind of sitting down and almost coming across as if you don't belong there. So that's really what I want you to do. I've had people comment when I've interviewed folks or when I'm sitting on a panel, and they've commented after the fact that they just appreciated my presence and just my enthusiasm, but my professionalism. And I know what they were trying to articulate. They just didn't really know how to say it. So that's what I want for you. I want today's episode to give you some ideas to see if you're truly projecting the amazing professional image that you want to project. If you are, then episodes like this can just help remind you to keep an eye on that and to continue to grow professionally. Because even me, who, I'm not any more special than anybody else, but even someone like myself who studies this, who teaches this, who is in the world of consulting and coaching, there are times when I too have to watch it and kind of look for things. But it's good for me to do that because I want to always be learning something new. I want to keep up with the current trends and the research. And lifelong learning is a key ingredient to success because you've got to keep up with the times, right? So, again, guys, I'm in the same boat. When I'm doing the research and I'm looking at the strategies that are working for myself and my clients, I get so excited to film another episode and to record an episode for you so that you get the support that you need. Because if you're one of our listeners, I want you to look forward to the new content we're bringing you. Okay? All right, you guys, let's move on to a second strategy. I want you to lead with clarity, but also with connection. So, what I mean by that is this: I want you to build upon past successes. I want you to continue to work on your powerful language and watch that vocal register. Again, make sure you're not speaking really high. That can be distracting and take away from your power, especially as a woman. If you do all that and pair it with authenticity, throw in a little storytelling, again, to make those connections and build those relationships, that will take you so far. Strategy number 3, I want you to reflect on your visibility and trust. Now, you guys have heard me talk about my favorite networking group, BNI. That stands for Business Networking International. We are the largest international networking organization, and I'm a member of the leadership team and a chapter member. And one of the reasons I'm committed to that organization, getting ready to start my 3rd year with them, is they teach a lot of amazing networking and leadership skills. And I'm all about that, right? That is definitely my jam. Well, one of the things that they say often, and it just made so much sense to me, is that if you increase your visibility, that can increase your credibility, which in turn increases your profitability. Now, I'm just paraphrasing here, but I think you can see where I'm going with this. So I want you to reflect back on your own visibility. Are you doing enough to position yourself as the expert I know you are in your area? Take a look at how you're being perceived. Are people nodding as you're speaking? Are they leaning in? Or do they seem to hesitate when you're interacting with them? Keep this in mind. Your executive presence is going to be amplified if you can help people in 3 areas. 1, help them feel seen. 2, help them feel heard. 3, help them feel valued. I preach this all the time to my coaching clients. If any of my coaching clients are listening right now, you're probably nodding your head saying, "Oh, yeah, she is. She's always telling us that." I am a broken record when it comes to that. But it's because I've seen it. I've seen it make such a difference in the staff that I've had the privilege of supervising for these many, many years. And I also see it when it comes to the clients that I work with, especially if I'm working with a new manager. If it's someone who's never had direct reports before, it's hard to articulate how important those 3 qualities really are. If somebody feels that they truly are visible, they're feeling seen. They feel that their opinion matters, right? That's why they feel valued. They feel that, you are someone they can reach out to if they've got concerns or questions, or maybe they're just having one of those days and they just need to vent. So it's really important to be able to do that, not just for yourself, but for the folks you work with. Now, if you think maybe you are holding yourself back from truly being visible and untapping your leadership, I'll go ahead and put my next playlist I want to recommend to you. It's literally called What's Holding You Back. So again, check that out in the show notes and in the description box. Now, before we leave visibility, let me give you another bonus tip about it. Did you know that according to the research, if you have someone who's comfortable enough with public speaking, that they're addressing a larger group, it can be 5, 10, 15 people. It doesn't have to be hundreds or thousands by any means. But did you know that when people see you being able to discuss issues or give a presentation to a larger group, you automatically are seen a little bit more like an authority figure? And it's got an interesting nickname. The phenomenon itself is called the Babel effect. I love that. So, in other words, the more often you're able to lead a conversation or a discussion or make a presentation in some sort of way where you're addressing a larger group, it can definitely amplify that executive presence that today's episode is all about. Now, I have quite a few clients that struggle with public speaking. So, you guys, as a quick bonus, I'm going to go ahead and put my public speaking videos. I have a couple of those for you. So I'll be sure to include those as well. And again, if you can work a little bit on your public speaking, whether you join an association like Toastmasters or work with someone like myself who can help you get a little more confident on public speaking, then you guys, it could really make a difference on that executive presence and just make you feel more comfortable when you have to, in fact, address a larger group. It's also a great way to position yourself for a promotion if you are really interested in leadership down the road. The more comfortable you are in speaking in front of folks, because you guys, if you're nervous about it, most people are. Most people are not like me and enjoy public speaking, okay? That is not usually a thing. Are there naturals out there that are very comfortable on stage? Well, sure, but you can say that about anything. There are naturals about every type of activity, sport. There are some people who are natural at singing, whatever the case may be. You don't have to be a natural at public speaking to get better. So check out those videos. I think you'll enjoy it. And then just remember, your point of view matters. If you're asked to address a group, realize you have a perspective that obviously people were interested in, or they wouldn't have asked you to participate. All right, Shop Talkers, that is it for today's episode. Remember, your voice, your words, and now your executive presence all come together to help project the professional image you're really interested in. It is all about branding. So again, be sure to check out our playlist or consider joining us for this workshop coming up October 2nd. Put our action steps in place. Be sure to comment and let me know what you've tried. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? In fact, you might even have some other ideas on things that have worked in terms of helping you up-level your executive presence. So I love hearing from our audience. Be sure to comment and let me know how it goes. All right, you guys, as we wrap up, you know I'm going to mention our motto that we say at the end of every episode to remind us that our day really can be in our control. It's all about how we see it. So if you're not having a fantastic day, don't forget you've got the power to make it one. Until next time, this is Dr. Dawn reminding you that your executive presence matters, and it's really all up to you. I know our episode is over, but this is just the beginning. If you're ready to take action but don't know where to start, just head over to drdawnshoptalk.com for lots of free resources, ways to work together, and for even more. Subscribe to the Dr. Dawn Shop Talk YouTube channel. Remember, ladies, you don't have to take this journey alone. I've got you covered. Till next time.